guys getting feedback?
Do you hear any feedback? We're alive right now, but do you hear any feedback?
I do hear feedback.
It's like staticky.
It's I don't
entirely
hear
on
feedback.
Your end, Kat.
So it's my end. I'll be back, but start the show as I.
We don't need that. To this episode.
Nah.
If you are here live, welcome to the pre-show of the show where we all. I think we were slated to start in 4 minutes, so the fact that we are here now is actually quite an accomplishment.
Early,
all right,
in fact.
Kat, let's test your audio.
I'm guessing I'm okay if you don't hear anything.
Yeah, you're good.
You're good.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Sounds good. All right. Sorry about that, guys.
Are you using your AirPods as microphone?
Oh, maybe now No, it's the Yeti, I believe. Yeah, it's the Yeti.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like your hair on the AirPod, because that's what it sounded like.
That's hair.
Anywho.
Causing problems.
It always does. We have a hair anthology coming up really, really soon.
One anthology at a time, girl.
We'll do. There's going to be a whole comic on Amy Gets Bangs.
Hey, if you need to write something, Amy, that's the one. You have a slot.
All right, I'm going to get us rolling. Hello, legendary listeners, and welcome to a very special live Legends of Tomorrow post-series podcast. I'm going to call it that for the time being. But this is a podcast that I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy. A lot of our listeners are going to enjoy because it's very on brand for us. As many of you know, Kat, one of our hosts, has a Kickstarter going basically every week of the year. And if you have been with us for the last couple of years, you know that one of the most successful Kickstarters that Kat has ever done was the Bisexuality Kickstarter, which I believe was last year, correct? 2021?
Yeah, actually, I think it was a little less than last year. So we did that campaign for August into September.
Yeah, that's right.
A little less than a year. Yeah.
Because it was
we were doing
about the time of Morgan's
for Bisexuality Week. That too, yeah.
I knew
right.
that because I was like in a pool on my honeymoon, like, oh, Bisexuality launched, I'll donate. And then I was like, oh, I've got really bad Wi-Fi in the pool.
All right. That's a good brag, though. That's something I would like. Yeah, I would like to know if people are backing my campaign in a pool.
Yeah, exactly.
While on their honeymoon.
I can only back in pools or bathtubs. I have to.
I got to be by a body of water to back your Kickstarters.
So if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, wow, that was a voice that I don't recognize, you actually might recognize it. This is Phil Falco, who is Kat's partner in crime for many a comic book and many a Kickstarter. But Phil is joining us, as well as friend of the podcast, Dan, who is also Phil and Kat's family. And Dan, say hi so everybody can recognize your voice.
Hello, I'm down.
I'm here. Dan's like, I am here. So we're here to celebrate the fact that Bisexuality did so well that Kat's like, let's just do another one. And so coming up in a very short amount of time will be Bisexuality, the second Bisexuality, like the sequel, I guess. What
it is, but it is a Bisexuality still bi. But I'll give Phil that. Phil came up with that name. But Phil, I'm going to pass the baton and tell you why we're actually not saying it's Volume 2. It is Volume 2, but why in the marketing wise, we're like, let's pretend that it's not Volume 2.
Yeah, I think, the easy answer is that, like it's an anthology. You don't need to read the first volume to read the second. We don't want to feel like there's a barrier to entry if someone wants to just get this volume. But the real answer is, of course, we want to make sales, We don't want people to feel like they got to buy both volumes to get it. And, we love the title Still Bi because, that's kind of a thesis statement of Bisexuality and of this volume in particular, that your identity doesn't change based on who you're with in present. And, we try to incorporate that into our cover, but also just into the title this time around.
So let's go around the table real fast. Obviously, our listeners know Kat, they know Morgan, but Phil, you've been on the podcast a couple times. What episodes have you done with us?
Oh boy, I should remember that, shouldn't I?
You did the LGBTQ plus in media one, right?
I
think a few other Legends episodes. Maybe was it the animated episode with Astra?
I think so.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I'm not remembering because I talk about Legends with Kat every week, so I feel like I'm on the podcast every week. But I've been on a few times. We've talked about Legends. We've talked about queer stuff. I always have a great time, so it's great to be back, everyone.
And then Dan, introduce yourself to our podcast. Let our listeners know about you and how did you meet these crazy kids? How are you involved?
We go
with
back
these...
a little bit. Phil's my brother, so
Yeah,
I was
I've
gonna
known
say,
him
how'd
for
you
a
meet
little bit
Phil?
now. When I met Kat, obviously through Phil, they were very kind enough to invite me onto By Visibility as the assistant editor. So I've got to experience firsthand what publishing an indie comic is like, and I'm. It's been a very long journey. That's been so much fun.
Honestly, I think like as we get into the podcast more, I definitely want to hear like from Dan and Morgan's point of view mostly, just because I mean me and Phil do comics a lot, but like to hear from their point of view of like getting into comics and like doing their roles. I think that's
And
gonna
if
be
you
fun.
missed the memo, Morgan
So
is in
many
this
emails.
anthology.
Yes.
Oh yes, it's a spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
We got 17 stories in this anthology, and Morgan is one of them. Morgan's one of our favorites.
Thank you.
Morgan's was
Thank
also
you.
the first one that was completely done, right?
I was
By
the-
far.
Wasn't I the last one in, first one done?
Yep.
Yes.
The whole
Yeah,
process
it was
was very fast and easy for me.
yeah, and also one of the
Comics
longest
are easy.
stories, which made it even crazier. You know, Kat has to keep telling Morgan that, like, oh, this isn't what comics are usually like. It's not usually this quick. And Morgan's like, why aren't you making more of them?
I've been joking
so
with her
easy.
that it's like, oh my god, it's so easy. Like, I don't know why you think this is hard, because it was the process was just so like so seamless for me, and my artist was so great, and just kind of like, hey, here's the stuff, and we gave him a couple of tweaks, and they're like, okay, here it is again, and it was like done.
I've never
What
seen
Morgan's
the
trying to
process-
say. What happened?
I've never seen the process go so seamlessly. I've never seen the stars align.
I was blessed.
It was such great art and just it's such a great story. It was just so quick. I will say what Morgan's trying to say is that the editors did such a good job that it was so
The
seamless.
editors really just brought it home so quickly.
So, Phil, I'm going to direct this question to you. If listeners have never heard of this anthology before, they've never heard of what this is, give us the log line for By Visibility. What is it, and what can fans who back the project expect to get?
By Visibility is just a collection of stories and different voices all about bisexuality, with all different genres, from fantasy to romance to slice of life to sci-fi to reality TV to vampires to spy action thriller to anything else you can imagine. You know, it's a celebration of bisexuality and an identity that's so often overlooked. And you know, we're so happy to have such diverse voices included, and to be able to tell about different people's experiences of bisexuality and, you know, what it means to them. And I think it's accessible to anyone, whether you're bisexual or not. I think there's just so much variety and so many different types of stories in there. There's something for everybody.
And it's a very personal anthology for every author who has contributed to it. Are there some authors from the first anthology that are back?
There is, yeah. There's
I mean,
3? I mean, I guess, yeah, 4. And no, Phil wasn't in the original one. There's
I was just an editor the first time around.
You were just an editor, which is so interesting. A little behind the scenes. Phil did write a story, but it got so big, and we didn't really know if the anthology was going to be, you know, successful or not. So we're like, oh, we shouldn't make it that long. And obviously, it did really well, and we're happy about that. But we didn't know it was the first time we were doing an anthology at that point. So when we got up to the numbers, Phil's like, you know, I'll take my story out because we have too many. So Phil actually he almost was in it.
Yeah, but, from the first volume, we have Kat returning. We have Wells Thompson, who wrote a really great story the first time around and surprised us by applying again this time with something equally good and very different. And we have Julius, who I think is listening right now and is my fiance. And he's wrote a follow-up to his story from the first volume.
He has a plan for sagas. I won't say any more, but he has plans for more.
Building
to
the
come.
By Visibility expanded universe. Then on the art side, we have a couple of returning artists. We have Maru Davalos, who did Julius' story last time and is returning this time. And then we have Dominic Bustamante, who did Kat's story last time and now is on a new writer's story, a new writer to By Visibility story this time. Other than that, everyone's new. And I think we got like 30 to 40 people on this book, so it's a lot of new, not a lot of new faces.
Whoa.
It's 16
how many
stories.
were there in the first volume, and then how many stories in this one?
9, I think.
Yeah, 9
Oh,
volume
so
1,
that's-
17,
wow.
16, 17, something like that.
That
60.
glow up is real, huh?
It is.
Pat,
Back and higher than ever.
one could say that this one leveled up.
Hey!
So a little background for people who
Bringing
are
it
new.
around.
We had a Legends of Tomorrow fan fantasy league for our Legends of Tomorrow's last season. I hate saying last season. And we all had team names, and mine was called Level Up because I had all the characters that probably wouldn't end up winning, but I was hoping they would. And some of them did. So
And then
I
I-
was
Every
rooting.
week, Pat
Didn't
would
you
say,
get
like, my
third
team,
place?
I'm just hoping for a Hail Mary.
Didn't Team Level Up come in last?
No,
Or did
you
I come
came
in
in last. Oh, no. The competitive cat knows you came in
Amy
last.
I'm XOXO Gossip Girl did not do well.
I seem to remember who came in first, though.
Yeah, no, I think
Oh.
Swarley came in first for putting it all together.
Well, technically, Swirly came in first, but I mean,
Anybody who Legends fans, unfortunately, if we had gotten a season 8, you would have seen the pirate version where what
that
was
would've
it
been
going to be
so
like?
fun.
You
The
steal
loser
people
gets
from
to
people's
steal
team.
someone from each team, and so the team's gonna move around like a pirate ship. It was my title, my like team name would have been Our Flag Means Death.
Yes.
I like
Oh,
it.
that would have been a great one. 'cause
Um,
that
Okay,
show was amazing.
Rachel's in the chat. She said I got second. I could have sworn I got
believe
second.
you, Rachel.
I
don't
really think I
believe
did.
you. Give me the points.
I
Look,
will find the email from Swarley
I
in
think
just a little
I think
bit.
Kat might have like rewritten realities.
your point. I won. I got first.
If you say
What
it
pilot
enough,
pod?
it's true.
if you say it enough.
You all have your by visibility fantasy football sheets, right?
Ooh, we should. That's
We
what the
should.
next thing we should do.
We need a by visibility bingo. I think that's what it is. Like
I like
like
it.
each time you read a story, you get to mark off
The
whoever
bingo
marks off
card?
The bingo
We're
card.
gonna
Yeah.
I
find
think-
little things in each story, and you have to mark them off as you find them.
Well, the
I think only Morgan and Amy could play that one because
It's only
we'd
four
be
now.
cheating. But we'd
yeah,
be
you
cheating.
guys would. Well, didn't you guys do like cards for the first anthology, like a kind of like a card game, and people
yeah.
had like skills and abilities,
Yeah.
Dan, why don't you talk
Make
about
that
the
into a
trading
real-
cards?
a real thing.
Yeah, each story has a trading card. We each one has a character or a scene from it, and we have different levels rating them on like wisdom, charisma, give them a little attack effect bonus that relates to their story. It's a lot of fun and a creative way to showcase these little characters.
We kind of kicked ourselves giving every story a card last time because now we have like double the stories and we had to do even more cards, which are so much fun to design. But it drives
money.
the costs up. You got to print all those. You got to design them all.
Oh, yeah,
But
jeez.
we don't regret
So-
it too much.
Dan, tell us about how you got actually involved with the project and what is your role in this second anthology?
Perfect. I was more of a spectator on the first volume. I got to watch Phil and Kat go through the whole process from the sidelines, and then I got more involved as they were shipping it out because we a bunch of us were getting together to actually help package them all and send them to a lot
I
of
remember
people.
hearing about that.
Yes, it was really cool.
I have
remember hearing
nightmares
that
about
was
high
quite the
visibility.
event.
Yes,
I think
can't
I
wait
feel
to
like
do
I
it
saw
again.
some photos of like the assembly line.
Oh, we had a full assembly line. I'm really bad with tape, I've learned. So instead, this time I got to come on. I'm just graduated as an English and history major, so I've always been into writing and storytelling. So I think Kat and Phil just wanted to see how I would be involved in this. So I got to review submissions with them, edit stories alongside them, and approve them as they were going on. So there was a very kind offer from Kat that I was so grateful to accept.
Couldn't refuse it.
This is completely unrelated, but Dan, if you're a
Yeah.
history major, is that correct?
I am.
You're a history major. Kat, your microphone is bouncing back.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
attacking us.
Yeah. So if Dan is a history major,
Man.
how do conversations with Kat go about like basic history?
Do you ever just want to help her to understand
Look,
anything about
Gave
history?
up on that a
Time.
while ago. Cat's world, as we know, is Cat's world.
Can you name an example of something I got wrong in history? I don't want to hear from the.
Also, not
people that got
Amelia
rid-
Earhart.
Amelia Earhart, her navigator. She did not have a navigation like GPS device in the cabin with her. Her navigator, Fred, was a human who disappeared with her. It wasn't the gosh darn map.
So Dan and Phil they don't know about this, but
this is so good.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back about something though. So, I give my history.coms. I give the people what they want. I give them the correct information. And then we actually got an email from some, get ready. It's correct information. We got an email from somebody saying they helped them. I helped them, me specifically, helped them on their history exam. And they got to answer right because of me.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, about prohibition of all things.
I think there are some things that like very specific, correct information about, but other things you make broad, sweeping generalizations, and you're like,
I think all history.
There's this little circle that has
Dan.
Eleanor Roosevelt in it and a couple of other straight historical figures, and that's all Kat knows.
And the Beatles.
Kat, didn't you say that J. Edgar Hoover died at his desk eating an apple?
Well, the truth
is that
and-
to you?
And don't forget, we asked her, did Titanic happen before or after World War I? And she guessed after.
Catherine.
That's right. I forgot.
Catherine.
There's things I know in history, and that's most things. Okay, let me just say, and Dan and Phil know this as well. I brag about my master's in television all the time.
Oh my god.
So I have a master's in television. And that means I know a lot.
You know a lot about creating reality, which is what you do.
Okay,
I know
so
history.
going back to bi visibility and creating reality.
That's why
Kat,
we're here.
what was the inspiration, or Phil, whose brainchild was this originally, and how did it come to what it is now? How did you decide to actually reach out to members of this community and ask them to contribute their own unique stories, not just you guys writing the stories?
Wow, this actually happened a while ago. So this happened maybe a year and a half ago, where
I think
it
around,
was
like November, December, January 2020 to 2021. When we
I remember I was like, hey, I want to make a bi anthology, and I wasn't really out to the internet, so that was fun. I was like, I kind of have to come out at the same time, and I was like, is it worth it, blah blah, and I had a big conversation with Phil and a couple of other friends that we do a happy hour for comics, so people that we work with who does Kickstarters like we do. We kind of have an inner sanctum with each other, and we kind of ask each other the big questions. So that was my big question. So and then they're like, yeah, why this would actually sell really well. And I was definitely very nervous about it. But I feel like because it was me and Phil working together, we figured it out. I think making an anthology is really, really hard. But because obviously I have a comic background for a very long time and we both have a creating comics background. And it wasn't too different. We say it's a little easier than creating your own comic.
It's hard for a concentrated number of weeks when you're first getting everything put together, but then once everything's in motion, it's easier than making your own comic, making a single comic that you're in charge of.
It feels like it would be was it just a lot of project management essentially at some point, where you're just making sure that the artist is hitting the deadline or the writer is hitting the deadline and just making sure things are coming together?
Towards the end, it's basically project management. Once we curate the book and give all the editing notes, it's a matter of just making sure everyone's hitting their marks and everything's coming together in a way that makes sense to us as the project editors. And Kat and I were pretty organized, and Dan, we're all pretty organized people, but
we're all one person actually.
We're all one person now.
After this experience,
I call us the Bi-Bot. But this one really tested our organizational skills just because there were so many spreadsheets floating around that it's easy to get lost.
I can imagine.
Yeah, Phil. Well, that's what's interesting. I think we're all in charge in different ways. I think, Phil's very much let's figure out what our budget is and keep it in one spot, because I always know my budget, but keeping it in one spot is not fun. And you definitely like being organized in that regard. I think we're both the thing is with me and Phil, I feel like we both do half and half of everything. I don't think there's one specific thing that one person does in the other. Yeah, I can't really. Well, maybe from Dan's perspective, Dan, what do you think? Well, first of all, I will say what Dan ends up doing is definitely 3 people is great to have on the team because Dan tells me and Phil when we're on the edge, don't do that. We're like, oh, like you should look at this instead. So I feel like Dan's definitely the more rational one. But yeah, looking from the not outside looking in, but coming in for the second volume. Dan, what do you feel like, Phil ended up doing for the project, or I did and what you did for the project?
Knowing you in both your business and personal lives, it translates almost exactly perfectly because you two have a way of working together where you're both dealing with completely separate things and somehow always meet in the middle. So I feel like you guys were handling all the important like larger issues so well. You said Phil was good with budgeting and he was the master of the Excel sheets. So that was perfect for us. You felt like a strong captain in leading us and keeping us in charge of where our objectives should be, what we should be looking at. And I was definitely following both of your leads and looking at what details should be managed, what might have been overlooked at one point. And since this is my first experience putting together a comic, I was trying to like put my mind in that space of what might not be addressed if somebody has been going through this for so long.
So this is a good question for Dan and Morgan because this is something that you guys were creating in a new space for you. Because Morgan, I have read your short stories. I've read your screenplays. I genuinely you're like, I wrote a comic. I was like, what does that mean? So what was it like hopping into this? I mean, to go into a completely different medium. What did it feel like to create?
Yeah, it was funny because I think I was talking to Kat one time and I said, oh, I saw that like the Bi Visibility 2 submissions went out and it was like over the holidays and I didn't have time to do it. And Kat was like, oh yeah, the next time around, definitely like throw something in. I was like, great, yeah. And then it was a couple weeks after that Kat was like, we have an opening. Would you want to hop in quickly? And I was like, sure. I've never written a comic before, but okay. So it was definitely a new experience. I'd never written anything for the comic medium before. So I had Kat send me like a bunch of scripts from the first Bi Visibility anthology, and then I had the issue. So I read I read through the all the stories in the first one, and then I kind of compared them to the actual scripts to see like, okay, how do people talk about, the art, and give direction to the artist? How much description do they give? How little description do they give? Like, I didn't want to, hand in a script that was like all description and then like no dialogue. And then it's like, when you actually get the pages, it's like, oh, because like that was great on the page, but like you can only see so much. So that was really a challenge to realize like how much you have to give to the artist to tell them how to do the work. And at the end of the day, you're writing it's a comic script, but it's a script. So you do want to, give an idea of like what the story is through your words. But it's so different to know that is then going to turn into art and how that's going to translate.
We actually have a question from the people. So Elena says, any tips on changing mediums, like switching to writing short stories to writing comics? And this obviously will be for both Morgan and Dan.
Yeah, I'm not, again, this is my first comic, so as a as a professional, as an expert.
Yeah.
But no, I just think it's I think the easiest way is to start from the story first and like figure out what kind of story you want to tell. And then kind of use the medium to the best of its ability. So, if you're a very like visual writer, that can definitely translate over to comics or even screenplays. And you just kind of have to think about what's going to work well. And everybody here really helped me out with saying, okay, like that's great, but like we should probably have like a bigger page, or you've put too many panels on this one, could we like pare it down a little bit? Because I'm a wordy person in general. Every time we've done those NYC midnights, I'm like, oh my god, what is
words
happening?
like
I have
mad.
to cut. Yeah, I have to cut a page.
Yeah.
So it was definitely like the first draft was definitely like, hey, could we tell this a little bit more succinctly and like pack things down so that we can have, you know, bigger panels that have a little bit more of an impact? And that made perfect sense. And I was like, yeah, let's like rein it in. So definitely also, I think one of the big things is just don't feel like you have to be perfect on the first try, and definitely reach out to people who've done it before and have them look it over. Cause I think that the feedback that I got from everybody here was so invaluable for me going back to the story and going, okay, like how can I tighten it up?
And you've read comics in the past too, which I think is very helpful. I think it's a lot harder for people who've never touched a comic to say, I want to write a comic, you know?
Yeah. I think knowing
I was definitely
like
more in
knowledge.
that camp.
What happened?
I was definitely more in that camp. I've always been predominantly a prose writer and more reading books than graphic novels. So when I had to switch over to a different medium, I definitely did what Morgan did and addressed old comic scripts that they have sent to me and read other comic books. I think the things to keep in mind if you're thinking of switching sides is overall like story structure, pacing, what you want to keep in mind. And I know with prose writing, some of my anybody who read my script know I was very descriptive. It was probably too intense for the artist, and I had to learn to cut back down. But
when Dan submitted his first draft, we said this is a beautiful novel, but
that sounds like what would have happened with me. Kat would have been like, "That's great, but I'm gonna need you to let the artist do some work."
And what's so funny is that Phil does come from a prose background, but I think me and Phil, and I think why we work so well together co-writing, is that we both we're descriptive enough for the visuals, but and this is, everyone has a different route. Like if you, Scott Snyder, who's like one of the biggest comic book writers, if you read a script from him, he can have a description for 3 pages and it's just for 1 panel. You know, that's just the way, and that's just the way it is. But there's some writers who, a lot of, I would say, people that come from a TV background, will write, like Ryan Parrott, who wrote for Revolution and has a Dead Day television show coming out and worked for J.J. Abrams. He does Power Ranger comics, and he showed one of his scripts at the end of one of his books, and he said, yeah, I'm not one of those people that write a lot of description. And that made sense to me when I read that, because I was like, oh, the reason being is because he comes from a TV background. With TV, you don't write as much description because the director kind of needs to figure it out, and you want the actor to do stuff. Like, you don't want to write everything out. Like, that's not fair to your other collaborators. So I think that's why I write a little less in my side, but also Phil, I think as he's gone along, honestly, your first Haunting script was really descriptive, and now you look at a Slice of Life script and it'll be camera on this person.
I think, like you said, I came from a prose writing background, so I definitely, when I started, was giving a lot more description. I think Kat and I have both kind of met each other in the middle a little more. When I was reading Kat's early scripts, like, it was very bare bones. Like, now I think we have a cadence that works for us, where, you know, if something is important, if we have a particular vision for a panel or a page, we know to give more description. But for the most part, the artists we've worked with, we're better off if it's not like essential to our vision, leaving it in their court to decide, you know, the focus or the angle or the little details, and just, you know, writing what we need there and letting them run with it. Obviously, every case is different, but, you know, it's a part of writing comics is just having that flexibility and having a good partnership with the artist or artists that you're collaborating with.
Yeah, I'd say that, like, having done those NYC Midnight contests and doing the script writing contests, I felt like I was kind of drawing on that experience when I was doing the comic script, because prior to that I had never written a script before, and I was like, oh, it could be fun to write a script, like, let me try. But I felt like it was, you know, it was different than script writing, but it was kind of in the same, like, genre. So I was trying to be like, okay, think about when you wrote, like, that script for that contest, and don't give it 10 pages of description.
And I think that's a good thing for anyone who's looking at getting into a different medium, is things like that, like the NYC Midnight Challenge. is nice because it forces you to try something different. You're given a prompt, you're given a word count or a page count, you're given a certain amount of time, and you just kind of got to go for it. Like I'd never written scripts before, and I'm literally messaging Kat. I'm like, so how do I do this? And she's like, oh, you don't do that. That's the director's job. That's the cameraman's job. You don't do that. But one of the things that was really valuable for me was just going out there and actually doing it. So, finding things like the NYC Midnight or Flash Fiction challenges or participating in a writer's group where you guys are all given a prompt, whether it's prose, whether it's comics, whether it's script writing, getting an opportunity just to try it and then to get feedback is super valuable. I'm a big fan
to an anthology.
Submitting to an anthology.
We had a lot of people who submitted who were writing their first comic script, and I think that practice is valuable, especially targeted practice when it's about a particular, a given anthology is typically about a certain thing. This anthology is about bisexuality, so it's helpful to have that kind of guardrail, and also other guardrails we put on it, page count limits, all of that stuff. Just like with NYC Midnight, kind of helps you hone your writing muscles.
So I think those prompts are. Sorry.
I was going to add,
Dan.
if thinking about switching mediums, think about what stands out on the medium you're choosing. So since, again, I was new to comics, one of the things that Kat and Phil were introducing to me was things like panel count and what panels could do for you. Like, unlike prose writing and short stories, like the person who asked the question asked, you have to fill up the page with words, obviously, in prose, but in panels, you could leave dead space. You could make room for atmosphere. So try and, no matter what medium you're looking at, look at what makes it stand out and how you can best utilize it for a reaction or an emotional response.
How to mind that page turn.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when I did start writing scripts, I had messaged Kat and I said, okay, what are the definitive texts? Like, I got the screenwriter's Bible, and the last challenge I was doing, I was flipping through it like it was like a medical book. I'm like, all right, let's look up how the flashbacks. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, montages. Like, I'm at the index trying to figure out how everything works. Does such a book exist for comic writing? Are there comic writing resources for people like me who like those reference books? What are some suggestions?
There's two. And I mean, Phil, if you have one that you want to say before I say mine, I'm curious if it's going to be the same one.
I have a feeling I'm thinking of the same one as you that I have somewhere in this room, but I can't remember the title of.
It's Scotty McCloud, who this is like the one that everyone goes to. Let me see the exact title. The creator, Scotty, Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art. That's like 101 comics. If you're going to get into comics, you should read it. Everyone should read it. And interestingly enough, going back to like the film school aspect, when I was in my undergrad, I actually had to read that book for just film to say, like, to understand images, because it's really about understanding panels and why they're used and what happens in between a panel. So there's a lot there. And Brian Michael Bendis has Words and Panels, I think it's called. And if you want a more modern look at comics, those are two I recommend. That's
awesome. Okay, so let's kind of pivot. Let's start wrapping things up here a little bit. I guess Morgan's not the person to ask. I guess we need to ask your bosses. Can Morgan give like a little sneak peek on what hers is about?
Yeah. We can probably we can run down all our stories. I don't mind doing that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, give us the elevator pitches for the stories.
Yeah, but you go first, Morgan. You got the floor.
Okay. So mine is a romantic comedy where a pop star breaks up with her boyfriend and then maybe accidentally burns down her house and ends up meeting a firefighter, a female firefighter, and there's like a little romance there. But then,
oh my gosh, this sounds like my cup of tea.
Should she come out, and how should she come out? And it was a fun one because I came into this really late. And so I was like, yeah, I'd love to throw you something, Kat, but I haven't had any time to think about this. So Kat kind of threw me. It was very NYC Midnight where Kat threw me a bunch of prompts. She's like, we had this idea and this idea and this idea. Do you want to take any of them? And I was like, yeah, I'll take the pop star coming out one. Sure, I think I can maybe do something with that. And then I had a whole different story, all sketched out. And as I started to write it, I literally pivoted the whole story because I thought, okay, this is a dumb joke, but wouldn't it be funny if, like, wouldn't it be funny if she burnt down her house? And so the whole story kind of changed based on that. But yeah, thankfully that prompt, I was like, oh yeah, this is a fun one. I think I can go somewhere with that.
I love that.
That is
Kat,
adorable.
what's your story?
If my mic's okay. So my story, I always write a lot of female-driven stories. I don't really get the chance to write a lot of male-driven stories. So I decided, well, it's so interesting. Our first volume, we felt like there was not too many, but there was a lot of female-driven stories. So we're like, we need to have more male-driven stories. So me and Phil are like, we'll write those. And then also Dan wrote his as well. So we're like, okay, we all have enough male-driven stories. And then, well, guess what? We got like all male-driven stories. And we're like, oh, we need to find some female-driven stories. So it's interesting. We went in that mind frame, and then it just happened to be that we got so many, again, male-driven stories. But yeah, mine is about The Bachelor. So it's a bisexual view. First of all, it's a breaking down of heteronormative television. So it's about this guy who is on The Bachelor and ends up falling in love with two people. And it's a bisexual love story, and it's breaking down what is reality television and what is The Bachelor. I did a lot of research about reality television and The Bachelor.
sounds like
Did you watch a lot of The Bachelor?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I watched a lot of The Bachelor. I've watched the show from, you know, I'm talking about, Phil, the one that's
Unreal.
about The Bachelor, Unreal.
Yes, that's a great show.
I've watched that before, but honestly, I did like a lot of more scholar articles about like how reality television works and how The Bachelor in particular works. And one of the things that I found so interesting is that it's very much a social experiment where you're not allowed to have a phone, you're not allowed to have a book, you're not allowed to have anything to entertain you. So obviously you're going to be infatuated with the one thing that they're trying to give you, which is the main lead. Because I was always curious of like, okay, how does all these people fall in love with this one person? And it seems genuine. And they even say like, I fell in love with this person in a few weeks because they do this social experiment of, well, that's all we give you. And we're going to put them on this pedestal. So that's really the idea I wanted to explore in this.
You know what it reminds me of? Like, Morgan, you know, in TV shows like Pride and Prejudice or in Bridgerton, where you're like, they've been to 3 balls. How are they in love with each other?
Yes.
But
Well, I
if
mean,
literally,
it's easy when your whole day is just kind of taking a turn about the living room.
yes.
Like,
Yeah, if that kind of makes sense, like an old school social experiment. If you live in that thing where literally your whole life is to find marriage, yeah, I could see how maybe you'd fall in love with somebody in a span of 2.5 weeks.
And this person is like the Queen of England. You know, this person's like the celebrity. This is like, they obviously make them very important. And I just found that so interesting. And also, like, why is The Bachelor still a show? Why do queer people especially like The Bachelor? So I wanted to explore all those things, and hopefully I was able to do it in 8 pages.
that page count was brutal for somebody who's as wordy as me. I was like, but I want to keep going.
And we all had longer stories. We all have longer stories here. Oh, Christiana's we have all our crew in the comments right now. We got Matt, Julius, Christiana, T, and then we have some of our Legends people. I know Dan has some of his friends in the comments. So all good stuff.
So I don't know if we have time to share all of the stories, but maybe like Phil, what was your favorite that you're excited?
Yeah, we definitely don't have time for all 17. Well, maybe all 3 of us could answer one favorite.
Yeah.
Sure. Excluding present company. I'll say that my favorite is a story, a very high concept story about erasure, about bisexual erasure, which is literally called Bi Eraser, and sees a character get literally erased, like part of her face gets erased. So it's like a high concept take on a familiar feeling that a lot of bisexual people experience. And I think that everything kind of comes together, the writing, the art, the color, everything just came together very nicely and very succinctly in a 4-page story.
How about yours, Dan?
That's really cool.
I'm thinking it over. We have many good stories that I love and am drawn to so strongly.
I feel like I know one, but I'm curious to see if you're gonna say that one because you really fought for this one.
I fought for this one.
You fought for this one.
Oh, okay. I think I know what you're.
But is that your favorite? I'm not gonna. What's your favorite?
I know what you're thinking of, but I'm going to just promote. My friend Sarah is also in this anthology. She did Quick Draw. It's a Western. It's about cowboys, and she had adapted it from a poem that she had written before, and she adapted it to her comic so well. And I think having that background made the imagery stand out, made the actual story being told stand out. And I'm definitely someone who likes genre fiction over coming out stories, even though slice of life coming out are always fantastic to read, and I like seeing other people's perspectives. I'm more naturally drawn to genre fiction. So seeing a Western being put into this was just beautiful.
And Sarah, I believe, was in the comments. So Sarah, say hey if you're still in the comments. That I agree. That was like I remember reading that. I'm like, oh, this is so different, not just as a story, but as a comic book. You know, there's so few comics that does kind of more poetry.
For me, Jeannie the Heartbreaker.
That's what I was thinking of. Because you really did like Jeannie,
of course. And with the art that came with it, rose it in my head.
Yeah,
brought it from something I love to something I love.
A great comedy.
It's a good, and we didn't have any comedy. Go for it, Phil.
Okay, so Jeannie the Heartbreaker. Jeannie has just come out as bisexual, and she's convinced that she will now have this newfound confidence and charisma and cool that she never had when she was before she realized that she was bisexual. So she goes to a party and realizes that she's just her same clumsy, always puts her foot in her mouth self. And it's just like very sincere, very funny, and has a really great message at the end that, you know, like obviously she is who she is and she should be proud of that. And her being bisexual is just one big part of that, another part to be proud of. So everything came together. It's cute art.
That one sounds great.
Yeah, no, that's a really fun story, and I think it came alive with the art. And we read so many stories, I almost missed it because Dan had read it a little later than us because me and Phil had met just the two of us a little earlier on, and then I kind of just forgot about the story and I didn't think about it. And then Dan's like, "How about this one?" And I was like, "Oh hell yeah! How did I miss that?" So it was really good. My favorite was Mismatched. It is a story about an AI finding your perfect match, and the girl finds out that she's bi through that. She didn't know she could fall in love with a girl or like, you know, even connect with a girl. So I thought that was a really cool story.
It's a really nice, it's a really good genre take on, you know, compulsory heterosexuality, where she never really considered that she wasn't straight until it was put in front of her. And then she just has this moment when she thinks back to her whole life, and you get to see that with her. So it's high concept, it's sci-fi, but it's also like such a human story. So it's right up Kat's alley.
For sure. Yes, so, it is. I know. Wait, go on.
I was going to say, so let's start kind of wrapping it up. Let's get the details. When can folks get behind the Kickstarter? Where can they get behind the Kickstarter? And what can they expect from different levels of the Kickstarter? Are there options for physical versus digital only, physical only? We know we've got the cards. So what kind of perks can people expect on different Kickstarter levels?
Before we jump into that, I don't think Phil and Dan were able to tell about their stories. So tell your stories first, and then we'll jump.
Tell your stories. Never mind. Ignore the details.
Birdman's sidekick, Sparrow, is revealed to be bisexual in the latest issue of his comic series. So he engages in a debate with a disgruntled fan over that reveal. And it's kind of a reaction to, you know, Robin and Superman coming out as bisexual, like within this last year in comics, and all the different responses to that. And, you know, I think I wanted to tell kind of like a meta story, you know, of a character, like a fictional character having a conversation with a real person, and kind of debunking all of the arguments you see against that, all of those like usual, all the usual vitriol you might see, and come back at it with, you know, love and positivity. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's topical. I think it's fun. I think it's light.
I like that it's like a comic about comics, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
It's meta.
It's what Phil does now. It's actually in his bio. He just writes meta comics.
Between slice of life and this, I'm just writing about fictional characters coming to life and being meta.
I mean, everybody needs their niche, so I think you found it for yourself.
Right,
yeah,
I think you need to write about a character who is a comic book writer who finds out every time he writes a character, it comes to life. And
Well,
all of a
Stephen
sudden he
King.
wakes up one morning. Yeah, and he wakes up one morning and he's like, why are all my comic book characters alive?
So there's a
and then just call it
comic.
There's a
straight up
comic, like-
meta.
There's a comic
Really?
about that. So there's a comic called
No.
Crossover, and it's by Donny Cates. It's one of the best comics that has recently come out.
That's
What is
raving
it?
about it.
Oh my god, it's so good. It's called Crossover, and it comes from Image Comics, and it's about these characters that come from the comic world, and they all come to the real world, and it's actually a commentary about comic writers, and they are all being murdered, and getting arrested.
Twist!
So you get to see like real comic characters. So we get to see like Robert Kirkman murdered by Negan. So Negan kills Robert Kirkman.
I
Oh
love
my
that.
God.
And by the end, spoiler alert, with the crossover, we actually get to see Donny Cates have his own commentary. So he shows up in his own book, and he gets to talk about like his personal stuff of like why he started writing. He said that there's a scene, and I've told this to Phil, like trigger warning, but he had overdose, and that was the day he like decided he wanted to write his first comic that became a hit. So it's such a good book. It's so
Now-
good.
Now
I
kinda-
just looked it up. And that's going to my Amazon card, I think.
I'm gonna add that too. I now I wish we had season 8 of Legends of Tomorrow, so there could be a Legends episode where they're watching TV and it's the Legends of Tomorrow TV show, but their characters keep dying in the show,
Ooh,
and they're like,
that'd be
"Ooh,
fun.
You know,
what's
we'd get
going
that
on?"
eventually if it kept going.
And there's oh yeah, that'd be good. Let's just write it. Let's just write the fan fiction.
Sure, why not? That'll be an
You
episode.
make your own season. You write an episode every podcast.
Oh, man, I don't know if my head can do that with all the writing we're doing. But Dan,
I love this idea.
too much. Dan, what is your story? And I know we were starting to wrap up, but I do see some questions in the comments. If people have questions, let us know. Go on, Dan.
All right. Very quickly, my story centers around a transgender vampire in some unspecified historical period. His main issue in life, besides from being ostracized from society, is just that he cannot see his reflection. He feels disconnected. I definitely wanted to connect it to feelings of dysphoria with trans people, especially as a trans writer. So his disconnection with his reflection is essentially challenged when a portrait artist searching for a muse comes to stay at his inn, and they kind of have to, their issues coincide very well, since he, the portrait artist, is very inspired by him, and he is able to capture his image that he's the vampires felt very disconnected from very well. So it's a love story. I wanted to bring in trans issues, since we were looking for a lot of different voices for this comic series. So I wanted to make sure a transgender, both my voice and also just topics of dysphoria, got brought in, because I feel like in fiction I don't see a lot of that happening.
Or
That's
comics,
beautiful.
especially.
Mm.
And you get to see the visual aspect, I think, is so cool. I really think Amy's going to especially enjoy it, just because you
That
love
sounds
history.
like my
and I think you're
cup
going
of
to like the
tea.
vibe. Yeah,
You
yeah.
already said you said that, and I already have this like, sorry Morgan, sorry Kat, sorry Phil. That's my first story I'm reading right there immediately.
Amy's like, ooh, a historical
I'm like, oh, a vampire
Historical
in a
trans
historical.
vampire.
I was like, that's it. That's my story right there.
Look, mine's about reality television, so I knew Amy already wasn't going to probably love it. But
The historical vampire. There, I'm there for. And actually, you know what, Morgan? The firefighter, you got me on that one. I was like, ooh, hot girl
We lost
firefighter.
that.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
it in Chicago?
no.
Let's
I was,
go.
about, I was about to say the only way I could make it better for you is if it was in Chicago.
oh man,
I should have made that the location. Bring Amy in. One of the things I like about, just like, because I haven't read the full anthology, just mine, but like
we're keeping
hearing
a secret
all the-
to everybody.
I
We can't
know.
tell anybody.
all the different genres I think are so fascinating, like the different story genres and different ways that people are telling the stories. I think is so interesting, and I can't wait to read the full anthology and see how many different ways that people tackled like one, it's a broad subject, but it's like one subject, and seeing like, westerns and vampire stories and like meta commentaries and reality television. Like there's so many different ways into telling bisexual stories.
And that's the cool thing about creating in general. It's just like those competitions we were talking about, where they give you a prompt, and the prompt is subject honeymoon. And people can come up with 50 completely different stories about a honeymoon, and you get but it all boils down to the same subject. So it's so cool that you guys have this opportunity where people can tell the stories that they want. Dan can tell the stories that are important to him. Morgan can tell the stories that are important to her. And this gives an opportunity for people who are not only telling these stories, but hopefully someone is reading them and seeing themselves in these
I hope
stories.
someone's reading them too. Period.
Right?
I like that. All right, Kat, you want to post some of the questions people are asking on our chat?
Yes. Yeah, and any other questions you guys have, that's what the point of this is. So please ask your questions. So I saw one all the way up. So let me see if I can find where it was. I have Julius's, but there's another. Here it is. Nope, we already did that one.
I see one from Rachel.
That was it. Thank you. New Rachel, who are some of your favorite bisexual characters in comics or otherwise?
Sarah Lance.
Sarah Lance is a good one. Okay, let's go around the table then. Let's go with Morgan first.
I mean, Sarah Lance is really such a good one. It's hard to beat Sarah Lance, but I feel like that's kind of all of our answer. So I'm gonna go with, and this is only related to the seasons that I watched. Clark from The 100. I really liked how they, initially at least, dealt with her character, and that she, just got to be kind of this character going through all these struggles. And also, she had relationships with men, she had relationships with women, and it was kind of not a big deal. And it wasn't a huge part of her character, but it was a part of her character. And I thought that she was just such a well-rounded, well-formed character. And it wasn't like, sometimes on television, they'll have like the coming out story, and that'll be the only story that character gets to have for a while. And it kind of never felt that way with that character. Now, that show went off of a deep end very quickly, but I think in like seasons like maybe 1 and 2, she was
Season 2 especially.
Season 2 was a great season for her, and her relationship with Lexa and things like that. And then season 3 got weird, and then I stopped watching. So it feels weird to choose her, but I think that she was like such a great character.
So Amy, you mentioned Sarah. Is there anyone else besides Sarah?
There's on the TV show SWAT, there's a character, Chris Alonso, who is who actually states that she's bisexual as well as polyamorous in kind of an early season. And she is let me see if I can find the actress's name. I always forget the actress's name. The actress is also queer, and so it's played by Lena Esco. So it's wonderful to see, because she's this character who's gone through 5 seasons, and we've seen her with various different partners. And it's really wonderful, especially on Instagram. Lena Esco is very vocal about how important it was to represent this character, Chris, accurately for her friends who are bisexual and polyamorous. And on top of everything, this character's a kick-ass SWAT character. Like, she's literally part of the SWAT team, and she is so confident in who she is. And they have some really important discussions. Like, one of her team members is a very strong Catholic, and she goes over to their house one day, and their kids start asking questions, and the wife is like, I don't really want you answering these questions the way you're answering these questions for my kids. Like, and so they ended up tapping into some really interesting conversations all the way around. But it was really nice to see that character represented, but also to see the conversations that were very clearly going on behind the scenes. And I know that the character was received well, and I hope from my understanding is the character was received well by fans. So I hope that is the case, that people who fall into that category felt well represented by her character. She's left. Like, season 5 was her last season. But all for good things. Like, she's going on new projects, very amicable, which of course is always the best when you're like, oh, I'm glad that they're leaving the show on good terms. I'm glad no one got kicked off after having alien babies out of their nose.
Dan and Phil love following that side of Legends of Tomorrow.
Alien babies.
So Dan, who is your favorite bisexual character?
I don't know if anyone noticed. I was very nonchalantly looking around my room trying to make sure I didn't have books or anything I was going to forget, because there are just so many characters in my head. if we want to stick to Legends, they have so many bisexuals on there.
You don't have to stick to Legends.
No, I know. I still think John Constantine deserves the shout out though.
Oh yeah.
They have loved him since 2013 when that original show that got canceled started. And
you and Amy could talk about Constantine, and me and Morgan will 2% be watching the show.
W actually let him be bisexual. I will always love him. He's just a fun character to have. Very sad that Legends is ending. Besides for that, for a bisexual character, I probably Rosa from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I just love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I love a good short sitcom, and her coming out was one of my favorite episodes. It was touching. It was
I forgot about
integral to the actress. Like, it was just beautiful to see.
Speaking of sitcoms, you have to watch Abbott Elementary. I hear everyone in your family's watching it.
Are they? Phil, is this true?
Yeah, everyone's seen it except you. Marianne's even seen a couple.
Marianne's seen it too? Damn.
They got the bisexuals on there?
They don't, but you mentioned you like sitcoms, so I was thinking about Abbott Elementary. Phil has seen it, and your parents have seen it.
It's so good.
All right, I'm in.
All right, so Phil, yes.
Topical answer? I think Heartstopper had a really beautiful bisexual male coming out story with Nick Nelson, based on a webcomic. So very that appeals to me a lot, and I thought it was just very, very sweet, very like solid coming out story that took its time and let the character figure out their identity, because it's not always a no-brainer. It doesn't always come to you all at once. More niche answer for a show that nobody watches except me. I think Good Trouble.
Good Trouble, spin-off. Only you watch.
I'm literally the only person. I don't know how it has. It's Good Trouble. It's a spin-off of Imposters, the ABC Family / Freeform show. It's nobody watches it except me, but they have a character named Gael who is bisexual, and he's unfortunately caught in the middle of a very boring love triangle for half of the show, but he's bisexual, and I think that they do cover a lot of really interesting ground with him. They talk a lot about his identity, his Catholic family. He has a trans sister. There's just like a lot of story to mine with him. He comes from a religious family. He's Latino. Like they really touch on the intersectionality of his identity and really drive into the bisexual specific issues for him. Being a man, being bisexual. Right now, he's about to become a father, and that's also tying into it. So I'm just continuously impressed by the different journeys that they take this character through without ever like losing sight of his bisexuality, and without making it the only thing that matters to him.
And they're writing it just for you because you're the only one watching it. So.
Literally,
I am 3 seasons behind, and going through the first season, I was like, I cannot stand when Gael is in this live triangle, and so I was like, just wait. It's okay. He gets better. You'll love him. Just wait a minute.
And like I said, he's caught in a very boring love triangle. Not his love triangle. He's one of the guys that in the love triangle with one of the lead female characters. But once we move past the love triangle stuff, I think he gets great stuff. I don't know if Dan saw enough to see that. But.
No, I did. I love his family life.
My favorite probably goes to Petra from Jane the Virgin. I think she definitely she's the best representation for bisexuality. She has a nice monologue about it, and she's just such a good character. I love Petra. Comic wise, love Julie Power from the Power Pack. Morgan and Amy have heard me talk about Julie Power a lot. I am the only fan of Julie Power. I'm the only one who's read Julie. And then TV show wise, Nico from Runaways. I love
okay.
Nico. So
give Julius a shout out.
Okay. Julius said Pearl from Game Boys and Pearl next door.
We've been watching a lot of Filipino BL, and that's a character.
Is Pearl a good representation for bisexuality?
I actually
She's representation.
I think she's
Wait,
in
what
her
is
show.
it? Wait, what is this from again?
It's a Filipino BL show. A web show that was filmed during like the first lockdown of COVID, so it's like all on screens, and Julius has made everybody in his life watch it, and
I've watched an episode too.
Nobody likes it except Julius and me, but it's okay.
Okay, you want to hear something? So we went, I think it was for Marianne's birthday, we went bowling, and Julius like, if I beat you in bowling, we're going to watch Game Boys. And I said, okay. And he beat me, and I had to watch Game always with him. He keeps looking at me while we're watching it. He's like, "Don't you love it?" And I said, "Not really."
It's very. It has a specific audience, and it's nobody except Julius in there.
Even if you don't like it, I want to say a sincerity about it, but it's not sincere at all. It feels so you just love it, though.
I love that Julius loves it.
Yes.
And I love that I love when Julius is happy. And that makes me happy. So T wants to go bowling. Next time we see a T, we'll go bowling.
I wonder what TV shows we'll bet.
Yeah, that's what
I wonder. Let's go Top Golf. Let's maybe go to Top Golf. I'll bet.
Okay, yeah.
You'll bet on Top Golf. Are you good at Top Golf, though? Is this a mistake that you're making?
Okay, so
when she destroyed.
So what's so funny is Julius bets on everything, every single thing. If you go up the stairs, he'll bet. And I said, how about if I bet on Top Golf? The one time he never bet was that. He's like, I'm not betting you on that.
Julius will take any losing bet you throw at him, but he won't take Cat in Top Golf.
That's so funny. We've been talking lately about oh man, we need to go to Top Golf because I've never played it.
Let's go to Top Golf. Let's
I'm not
put
betting.
a date on
I wouldn't
calendar.
bet you. I wouldn't bet
Why not?
you on Top.
Why not?
I don't know how to play it. You're gonna win.
Our friend Gabe was watching golf lessons on his phone while he was playing.
It was the saddest thing I've ever seen.
And he's trying to get no. It was funny that we did end up not betting, but we had 3 against 2. So Phil and Julius are okay at Top Golf, and then our friends Gabe, Matt, and me, and I still beat them with 3 people against 2. And Gabe and Matt had no points on the board.
I see that Rachel asks in the chat, "What's
range.
Top Golf?"
Top Golf is the next time we see Morgan, we're going to be playing Top Golf, so that's what it is. But it's pretty much bowling for golf. So it's very fun.
You're standing in in a balcony, and you have to aim, and there are different games you can play with it based on how far you hit it or aiming for a particular hole. It's a good time.
See, I heard Top Golf, and I thought it was like Top Gun, but for golf. And it's just a bunch of Tom Cruise
pilots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually shoot the golf balls.
You have to put on a pair of aviators.
Actually, if you're going with me, I'm already wearing the aviators, so
So you're halfway there.
we're gonna invite you, Morgan. After in June,
You're
we're
invited
gonna.
too, Amy, if you want to take a nice little short plane.
Amy, it would be a little harder, but you're always invited to go play Top Golf.
Yeah, do I have to move my arm? Because remember, rotator cuff injury.
You can play with your feet.
Broken femur.
Oh,
No,
shit.
you're not invited, actually.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're all busy that day.
That's cool. I'll just play my version. I'll be in a jet plane with.
I like that.
Nice.
I think that's honestly a good thing. I will say T asked a really good question, and I'm only going to ask it because I want to get.
I
Dan
know what you're
Phil
going to show,
upset.
and I'm so mad.
What did you guys have for dinner?
That's the question, listeners. If you're listening and you're not watching live, the question was, "What did you have for dinner?" I haven't eaten yet.
Oh shit. All right. Well, I will talk about my dinner because I will tell the origin of the story, but first I'm gonna talk about my dinner.
Wait, why
How does this have a whole origin story? It was a
origin
basic
story?
question.
What's your
Cat literally wants to know what people are eating more than anyone I've ever met.
Comics
That's true.
are here for cat food all the way up.
I've literally Cat and I, if we're bored sitting at a convention table, we'll play Would You Rather, and I'll be like, "Would you give up your bisexuality or your sense of taste?" And she's like, "My bisexuality." Would you give up writing comics or your sense of taste? She's like, writing comics. Literally, food is.
I'm well aware because I had to do a lot of research on mukbangs. So I had to watch a lot of people eating in the last couple days. So I because of Cat. So I'm well aware.
I love food. Okay. So I'll ask because I talked to Phil. We didn't talk about this pre-show, but we talked to each other literally 15 times today on the phone. And I talk to Phil every day, and I'm like, "Phil, what are you having for dinner?" He's like, "I don't care." And then if we're hanging out, I need to know what we're gonna have for dinner. And then a week from now, I need to know what we're having for dinner. And he's like, "Kat, why do you need to know what we're having for dinner?" Because I'm like, I'm excited. And the thing is, I don't have a big stomach, so I have to really enjoy it because I'm only gonna have 2 bites.
I don't care.
So what did you have for dinner? What was this? Let's answer the question.
Buckle up, get ready. I had a beautiful
Bye,
salmon.
guys.
I hate you guys. I had a beautiful salmon. I had some baked clams, and then I had some stuffed mushrooms. I also made a halibut tonight, so it was a big dinner, and I really enjoyed it. It was good. The thing is, so I'm not going to be able to talk to Phil next week, so I'm going away. And then Phil's like, oh, the one thing I'm not going to miss from you is you talking about food. I said, don't worry, I'll take pictures. Oh, no, go. No,
she
go.
has like 20 minutes of Wi-Fi a day while she's on this cruise, and she said she was going to use it to like check her emails and just like so she doesn't come back to like a full inbox. She said one thing she's going to do is she's going to let me know her dinner plans every morning.
Oh my God. I'm surprised she's not gonna like text you like pictures of food that she's.
Oh, I will.
Okay.
I will.
So
Julius.
let's get to the Kickstarter specifics. Where, when, how?
Okay. Where? Kickstarter. So go check out the Kickstarter. No, I'll give you guys a link. The pre-launch link also goes to the Kickstarter as well once we're live, so you guys could go check that out.
Follow.
You could do the when and the why. So whoever wants to do the when, and then the other person could do the why.
Sure. So when mid-June, I think it's the third week of June that we're aiming for, the 20th or the 21st. But the best way to know when we launch is just to follow that pre-launch page. You'll get an email as soon as we go live, and you can give it. If you back us on our first 2 days, you get some discounts on some of our tiers that we're offering early bird rewards on.
All right. So why? Dan, you go for it. Tell us why we're doing it.
Why we're
Why are we doing Kickstarter?
why are we doing Kickstarter? Oh yeah.
Well, why are we doing
Get
this
that
Kickstarter?
Oh. Money. Gotta get all
Yeah.
the money. Of course.
In all seriousness, we got to pay our creative teams. That's why we're doing Kickstarter.
And the
Okay.
printing and all that. So.
And the last thing is, what kind of cool little perks can people expect as part of different Kickstarter levels?
Ooh. Well, we have a hardcover of the book, which is cool. So we also have an
The last
exclusive
one was
hardcover.
beautiful.
Yeah, we got 2 hardcovers. One of them you can only get on this Kickstarter, and then they'll never be available again. So if you like limited edition merch, you should definitely look out for that one. We've got a pretty high-profile artist on it too. So
I think we can say it because it's our thumbnail. So
we got Lisa Sturl on the hardcover. So it's very cool. You should definitely grab that. We also have another different version of the hardcover that's not exclusive. That's adorable. You get trading cards like we talked about. There's mystery boxes, so you can
pins.
I
Pins.
was gonna
Yeah.
say the pins, right?
Yeah, we just did a bisexual
Keychain.
enamel pins last month, and you can also get them on this Kickstarter. So you can pair your book with some pins. I said mystery boxes, but you never know what you're going to get. Get anything that you see on the page, and maybe some stuff that hasn't even been released yet. What else we got, Kat? Digital.
I think that's we got the digital. We have the indie bundles of you back for $1. You get most of the time we get up to 20 books, but you have to unlock stretch
keep
goals and
adding
stuff. Yeah, so read your new
Sweet.
favorite indie title.
All right, so real fast for listeners who are meeting Phil and Dan for the first time, where can they find y'all on the interwebs? Phil, you first, and then tell us a little bit about some of your other projects that people can get can take a look
And
at.
tell everybody why you love Kat. Go. No.
Because
Find
she
me on
always has good food.
No.
Sure. What?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Phil Falco Writes. Some other projects you've probably, if you're a listener of Legends, you've probably already heard of Slice of Life, but it's the webtoon Kat and I write together. Anime character comes to life, falls in love with a cheerleader. It's a GL webtoon, so you should definitely check it out. It's one of our favorite projects. We also have our respective comics. You can check out Haunting, my supernatural horror comic. We have a Kickstarter launching for that in a month or so for a trade paperback collect. And then, obviously, By Visibility. We're all involved in that, so definitely check that out as it comes. My favorite thing about Kat is that sometimes she's quiet when I'm talking.
I will say Dan has not seen this side as much, but when me and Phil have to spend a lot of time together,
Which is
somehow he ends up getting quiet cat, and not in an angry way, but she actually like needs to shut up. So that's usually nice.
She has this complex where she needs to fill the silence, but if you spend enough time with her, you like get over that hill, you like cross this barrier, and she becomes quiet cat, where she's like, I can't do it anymore.
Very few people get that. Dan's close. Marianne, I don't know. One time I had to be quiet with her, and it didn't work out.
I spent some
easier.
very long stretches of time with you, and I've not experienced much quiet with it.
No,
I don't know.
Part of it is she has to get exhausted. It has to be a long day. And tell us where we could find you on social media.
Oh yes, you could follow me on an Instagram account. It's literary .dandy, pun on my name and history. I mostly just post only recently now about books and other writing stuff there.
Excellent.
I've got no other projects, but I've got my full attention on bi visibility and promoting Phil and Kat stuff. So keep looking for that.
And then Morgan and Kat, what do you guys want to share? Let's do your quick plugs, and then we'll head on out.
Sure, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mojotastic. You can also find me as a co-host on Supergirl Radio, where we've actually been talking about some comics too. We've been talking about the recent Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow run, so we're actually finishing that up next week, so that should be fun.
And then Kat, what else you got going on? I'm sure you have 7 more Kickstarters getting ready here.
There's so many. But yeah, we're focusing on bi visibility, but we are opening up another anthology in July. And that's a Heron. I mean, time. I'm spending a lot of plates right now. We have a hair anthology coming up, so it's all about people's experiences with their hair. So we're very excited about it.
You weren't kidding.
No, we're actually making a hair anthology. No, we're actually making one, and it's cool.
We're excited about it.
That's really cool.
We've got a co-editor who we've brought on, who we're really excited about, and
who has worked on a hair story before, like a hair comic. So
high profile hair comic. So. Very excited for that. It'll be our next anthology, and we're really looking forward to getting even more voices to tell stories.
Yeah, so we have that coming up. So that could be really and we want all different experiences. So, trans experiences, people with cancer, or, people are balding, whatever. Like, we just want different experiences.
People who just got bangs.
People who just got bangs, and how many that changed their life.
Some people get bangs when they have a breakup. I broke a femur, and I thought that bangs qualified.
Hey, that's a good story.
Write that down.
We're actually just gonna not even asking me to write it. We're just gonna steal it.
Breaking bangs, breaking up, breaking bad, breaking.
There's something there. Amy's gonna
there is
workshop
something
it.
there.
Say more words.
There is.
For you.
You have a month to figure it out. But yeah, that honestly, because I work on so many things with Phil, he kind of said it all. So that's pretty much what's coming up for us. Guys, follow the Patreon, because we got some awesome Patreons coming up, because I won a trivia, because I'm smart and I know everything about history. So I know everything about history. So Morgan's going to be doing a presentation about mukbangs, and Amy is going to be doing a presentation about the Beatles. So look forward to that as I get to listen to it.
Can I recommend a Patreon post for you?
Sure, what is it?
Do like a live Q&A where you just ask everybody who's watching what they're having for dinner, and then respond.
Yes, I love this
like
idea.
A live virtual mukbang. Oh my gosh.
Ooh,
only if we get to do a similar one later where everybody asks Kat to explain a particular moment in history that she
I think
knows
that's a
nothing
great
about.
Before we wrap, Dan, you are a history major. What is a historical thing you want to know about from cathistory.com?
Yes, this is great.
Oh, no.
So ask Dan, ask like you're really curious about something.
Okay. The 30 Years' War ran from 1618 to 1648. Can you explain the religious conflicts and how it affected Europe?
Yeah, so Europe, we all know, is really religious. There's a lot of religions going on. And
Don't repeat what I said back to me.
That's what she does.
There's so much religion that people are just people couldn't even take a year for it. They're like 2, maybe 3. They're like 30. So there's this guy. He was old, and he really, really needed to talk about his religion, and no one would hear him out. He'd post all these things on doors. He'd post his.
I thought he was about to start posting on Reddit. A cat.
He posted on Reddit. He posted these little documents on doors, and he said, "This is my religion," and then no one wanted to listen. And then the other guy said, "That's wrong." So they fought about it. And then like there's some rivers involved. Like people wanted to get a river, and that's the 30-year war.
So the 30-year war was 2
Martin
guys.
Luther died about 100 years before
I was
that.
about to say.
Yeah,
Martin
so the
Luther, I don't
doors-
think was
the-
part
That's
of
a
it.
different matter.
No, and you don't get it. He came back and he started a war.
This is the
I
zombie
don't-
war.
That was the war.
There's
They're
zombie
like,
war.
look, man, he's alive.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, Dan, I think you might have to give back your degree because I know I've done a lot of research.
Straight to you.
No, because I've done a lot of research on the.
You
I
both have
did.
a master's, you know.
I have a master's on the 30-year war. So look. There's 2 guys. That's all I know. And
Kat, let's just since
More
you're
than
good at
2
repeating
guys.
back things.
yeah,
Can you tell us which century Dan said this happened in?
yeah. I remember it was the 1600s. They said. So it was around then. It was a long time ago. It was after Christ. It was not BC. It was after Christ.
It was a little after the dinosaurs.
Little bit.
And this has been History.com according to Kat.
Honestly, we gotta get Dan back on for the cathistory.com, and
We
Dan
really
should just
do.
like come up with topics that I should spit out and talk about history.com.
I'll
So
I
I
think
think
read
that'd be
it to
fun.
you, and you interpret it for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Wait,
you
how
tell
did-
us the real.
I was gonna say, and then
Thing
Dan can
happened.
come back in and be like,
Yeah.
"Now that's not right."
Morgan, what did we ask her? How did Anne Boleyn die? What did
Yeah.
she- I don't.
It
did
wasn't
you say?
What she
close.
said.
I remember that much.
Yeah,
I think it was off.
remember.
I think it was off the show too, so I don't remember. I think did I say someone's head got cut off? I think I said.
No, I'm
someone's-
inclined to say you thought she died of like a disease or something.
Oh, that's what I
We
said because
told you her
everyone
head got
died.
cut off.
I said everyone dies of a disease. She got a cold. It became bad.
That's right.
And then her
So-
head fell.
And her head fell off.
Oh, goodness. All right. So, yes, stick around. Those of you who are Patreon subscribers, this is the kind of content you're going to get. Our next episode on Patreon, Morgan is going to literally present us with a PowerPoint.
I have a
About-
PowerPoint on mukbangs.
I'm so
I-
excited.
I'm mildly concerned that I'm
You
going to
should
be
be.
disgusted. So our Patreon is patreon.com/Legends of Tomorrow podcast. You can find us on there. We've got a lot of cool content coming up. And also a reminder that our patrons have opportunities to suggest things you want to learn about. If you want a conversation about any DC comics, if we want to, I don't know, we should read the next couple. What are the comics that are coming out? What are they called?
the crossover things.
No,
Should we?
the Legends ones with the what's the
We should catch
What's
them
it
up at
called?
the end.
yeah
I
we'll
think,
do
but-
we'll do that. We'll remember. But we hope you all appreciated having Phil and Dan join us on this podcast to learn about the anthology. So Phil, one more time, where can everybody find the anthology and when will it be available?
Anthology's on Kickstarter. Be available towards the end of June 20th, 21st. Find our
We
pre-launch
literally
link.
changed the date today, so
Yeah, I'm confused. Best way to find it is follow the pre-launch link that's somewhere in these comments or in the video description, maybe.
We'll put it in there. All right, y'all.
Definitely.
We're going to wrap it up. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Dan, for coming on. Thank you
you.
to. Oh, you know what? I'm going to ask Dan to
Ooh,
close us
I
out.
like-
So, Dan,
Ooh.
kind of our tradition if we have a new guest on the podcast, our end of the podcast catchphrase is, thanks for listening and stay legendary. So I'm going to pass it off to you. You can say stay legendary, but you can do it any way you want. We've had people sing it. We've had people do it in different languages.
I know you
can
juggle,
also-
Dan. I know you juggle.
I don't got the materials with me. Sorry,
Oh no.
I don't have my batons.
So Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you to close out our podcast.
Well, I do wish I had my anything to juggle because that would have been way more exciting, and I am not known for my improv. So I will just say thank you for watching and stay legendary.